G'day and welcome to Aussievision. We are here today to talk about the shortlisted cities for Eurovision 2023, which will be hosted in the UK on behalf of the Ukraine. Now, last night we did have the shortlisted cities. No major surprises there. Probably the one to quickly talk about is London missing out. Look, I don't think many people kind of were very keen to have it in London unless you live there. It was going to be very competitive to get hotels, to get around. Look, they did have the Olympics, but the popularity of just one single event in something like a smallish stadium compared to like an Olympic stadium was always going to be very difficult. And I love the city, but it was just not going to be right to host Eurovision. As well as that, BBC in the UK have always been big about expanding the reach around the regional parts of the UK into different places, so it would have been a massive surprise if London did get the bid, so good to get them just out of the way. Edinburgh and Belfast, as the other capital cities in the United Kingdom, did miss out, and without a Cardiff, it does mean we will have a host city that is not a capital city again for the fourth year running. Lisbon was the last one in 2018. But let's talk about the shortlisted cities here, and let's do it in alphabetical order as they were announced. Birmingham were first up. No surprise to see them here. They've been really raising up in the odds in the last month. They weren't the second favourite at the start, but they're certainly the second favourite now. And for good reason. They've just hosted the Commonwealth Games and did the most amazing job of it. They have two arenas with over 15,000 capacity. They have really good spaces for press and for delegations to be in. It's a really good city. It has great transport links into it. It has an international airport close by. You can get from London pretty easily or from any of the northern cities easier. They've hosted Eurovision in 1998 as well, which actually might be its downfall because it was the last one to host it there, and perhaps if it hadn't been the last one, it might be favourite because I think it ticks so many boxes actually, and I'm warming more and more to Birmingham. I can kind of see the past at the fact that they had it in 1998 because I think it has a lot to offer, and I think we just saw that with the Commonwealth Games. I was really impressed. I think they could do a really good job of it, and I'd have no issue if it was in Birmingham. Next up is Glasgow, and Glasgow are the heavy favourites. You know, the city in Scotland, it had the arena from Eurovision movie, but it's always been one that I've always thought would be a great place to have it. Number one, because it might put a few people off going in the UK because it's all the way up north in Scotland. It's a great sized city. It's also very close to Edinburgh. They've hosted major events. They've had the Commonwealth Games as well. They had that massive climate summit recently too. They can host it. They have the international airport as well. Yes, there are connections. You can come from Australia and only have to do it in one stop on the way. Not too many flights, but you can do it, or you can just go via London as well. But it ticks a box of a good size arena as well. It's 14,000 there as well. A lot of people have been talking about the kind of spacing and the kind of circular approach of it. There's some misleading photos there where they're only using half the space. So look, it would be enough room. It's not a massive stadium, but it would be a really good city, and Scotland really want to host it. The only thing I always kind of feel like with the Scottish side is I feel like if it was in Scotland, they want to show off their culture, and when we have to keep Ukraine for good reason as a big front and center part of the show, maybe that just confuses a little bit between, general Britishness, Scottishness, and Ukrainian all kind of merging together into this one show. Maybe it might be better for Scotland to host when the UK actually win. Or maybe in the future if Scotland are competing themselves, who knows? But I'd have no issue. I think Glasgow's an amazing city to have it in, and I can see why those two cities we've just mentioned are the two favourites. Glasgow's about $2. Birmingham's about $2 to $3 at the moment, so it looks a race in two right now, but you never know. There's some really good bits from other cities here. Let's look at Leeds. Leeds, a great city in the north of England. It has a capacity for their stadium of 13,000 as well. No issue with this. I think I probably don't know enough about the city in itself. I haven't visited there before. I know it's a bit of a student town. It's got a good football club, but also it's kind of in the middle of a lot of other major cities around it. So getting there shouldn't be a massive issue, but it's not like it has a major international airport right next door. But I think getting around within that section of the UK is relatively easy. They're a little bit further down the odds, about $11 or $12. but I could kind of no issue with Leeds as well. It'd be a nice city to have it in, but it might be a bit of an outsider at this point compared to some of the other bigger ones there. Now, Liverpool. Look, Liverpool, I think there's a lot going for the city as well. It's a great city. There's obviously a massive musical culture there. I think it was European City of Culture there as well for a while. It's close to Manchester International Airport as well, so it would be a major thing to get there. It does have its own for the Europeans flying in, but thinking an Australian perspective. Its stadium's only 11,000, and I think that's a bit of a killer. I really feel like that's just not going to be big enough. I feel like you need at least that 13, 14, 15,000 to host Eurovision in a really popular country like the United Kingdom, where it's going to be a real struggle to get people going in. So I really love the idea of Liverpool. I've not been. I'd love to go. It looks like a great city. But I just feel like that capacity of the stadium might be a bit of a killer there. But, you know, I might be wrong, and we probably need a bit of further investigation. These are just our kind of initial thoughts originally on this as well. At the moment, they're $8 to $12 in the betting odds, which is actually pretty close. So they're up there at the moment. So we'll see how that one goes. Manchester. Now, originally they were looked at one of the kind of top two, and they kind of drifted away there for a while. Now, look, the BBC are located sort of just outside Manchester itself, so you've got BBC right there. They have the largest stadium of 21,000, which sounds much better for Eurovision, I must say. It's got an international airport there as well, of course. Now, I do think it's got a few things that need to cancel, as all of these do, so that might go against it a little bit as well. But I can see it's third favourite at the moment, and I can see why. Questions about why it sort of dropped down there a little bit, I'm not sure. Look, the other top two bids are great, but I see a lot of big ticks for Manchester here. In the middle of the country, the city has never hosted Eurovision before. It is a major city. It has hosted the Commonwealth Games again. Everyone's hosted the Commonwealth Games. I think Manchester would be absolutely fantastic as well, and I do love that capacity of the stadium, and of course hotel and accommodation shouldn't be an issue in a major city like Manchester in the UK. Now, looking down further, Newcastle, the plucky bid for Newcastle. Look, I love that they've made the shortlist. I think again here we have an issue of capacity. 11,000 for the stadium, again, I feel is just a bit too much of a killer. I love the idea of it being up there, but again, it might be a little bit tricky for some people. Look, there are flights, there is airport, but it's not going to get the major ones, those connections for, particularly in Australia, or even maybe America, I'm not sure, about connecting through these major parts. So that's a little view from our side, but it is going to be a bit trickier to get to, I think, than some of the other cities that are on this list. I think the town would get right around it. Like, I feel like with Newcastle, and let's ignore Geordie Shore, but you know the way they get around the Newcastle United Football Club, it just seems such a local, amazing city that would just really welcome Eurovision, as most of these cities are on this list. I just wish they had a bigger stadium and maybe a little bit better transport options there to get into Newcastle. They are at sort of 15 to 50 to 1, so a bit of their rank outsider at the moment. I can't see it going to Newcastle. The surprise kind of for a lot of people on the list was Sheffield, and a surprise to myself, and I kind of overlooked it. It's not really a glamour city. It's not really known for a lot of things like Full Monty, Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday, a lot of football references here today. But there's a couple of big ticks here. 13,000 stadium capacity, which is good. We're getting back up there a little bit, bigger than that 11,000. It has connections to the Ukraine. It's twin city with Donetsk. That's a really big part of it as well, and that could work really well. They've obviously not hosted before. But then we're getting to the size of the city, and the hotel accommodation would be a bit of an issue, and the transport links as well. Again, you'd have to be flying into another major airport and making your way there. Now, I don't know. I think that's probably is going to be a bit of a killer, but I kind of feel for plucky little Sheffield, and maybe if there was going to be the biggest shock ever, it could be them, but very unlikely. Looking at the summary of all things, it does look to be a race in two, with Manchester hovering around in third. I think there's a lot going for Glasgow, there's a lot going for Birmingham, and I do think if it wasn't for Birmingham hosting in 98, I'd actually have them down as the favourites to get this. I think they would be perfect. But I think hosting 98 might cause that bit of an issue. Wanting to get it out further, relations between Scotland and the rest of the UK sometimes a little bit fractured, so this might be a nice little olive branch out to Scotland to host as well, and it will have amazing local support as well. And they do need to ensure, because it's going to be very expensive to do it, and BBC have some issues at the moment, to ensure that there are some, I guess, more other revenue streams to make this happen. So whether that's local government support or corporate support around it, that's going to really matter. So that's going to play a role in any of these cities as well, and the city themselves and the funding. So those are the shortlisted cities. We will do much more in-depth organisation and investigation into them all, but that's just our kind of just initial thoughts about what could work. It does look a racing too, and to be honest, for nearly every one of these cities, it's going to work for Australians visiting as well. So excited around the process, and good luck UK, and looking forward to the next stage of the bidding process.